What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. I'm once again joined by Tyler, and we are back for the last video in our God of War community series, a series that used to air every single Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, leading up to God of War releasing this Friday. We are 2 days away from it. We are very, very excited. We're going to have a giveaway on Friday, giving away the game, and then basically the weekend as well as next week is going to be filled with God of War content. We can't wait for the game to come out. And for this video, we wanted to do kind of what we've been doing recently with community series. We want to talk about the review. We want to, people have been reviewing the game, the people that got it early, which we didn't, and we want to be able to talk about what they said and kind of give our reactions to what people are seeing from God of War. So we're going to be doing that in this video, and then, just so you know, all those future things coming up on the game. If you're here for the Yakuza video, welcome, and so on. So, Tyler, last week, we should probably, talk about this just for a second before we go into this. Last week, we had talked about God of War and comparing it to The Last of Us, and we had talked about the high likelihood that God of War was going to be very, very successful, and because of maybe that factor as well as other factors for sure. And we were totally, at least right now, we were totally right. I mean, this game has a 95 average on Metacritic, one of the best reviewed games on Metacritic history, one of the best PlayStation games ever reviewed, puts it right up there with The Last of Us, puts it right up there with Uncharted 2. I mean, this game, statistically, critically, number-wise, review-wise, is one of the best games ever released. That is pretty exciting. So we're going to talk about, what that means, what we think, and also kind of talk a little bit about if that actually is a worrisome thing, talking at least from last week about The Last of Us and kind of what does that mean for future Sony games. So Tyler, let's talk about at least just now what do you think? So we see the reviews. We know it's got a 95. It's getting 10s across the board. It's got over 30 perfect scores. People really, really like Kratos' story. That seems to be one of the most reoccurring things in the reviews is that, his story is fantastic. This is the best version of him. Some things with the combat, some things with the cameras. So what do you think about what we've seen so far about God of War?
Yeah, I'll start out with the positive, and then I'll just talk briefly about the negative. In fact, I might even reverse it as I'm going if it makes sense. But I'm super happy, and we knew it, just like Alex just said. Like, we knew this was going to be an amazing game. But from when we first had it revealed. But the funny thing is that in the back of my head, and even like some of the people that I talked to, including Alex, like we were saying, like at work and stuff, we were saying like, the weirdest thing is that it's God of War of all games that will be this amazing game that will almost like, I almost want to say like change things kind of, not for PlayStation, but like for games where you can take an older game, a recognized game. Like most people really liked the previous God of Wars. They just didn't like how Kratos was always like yelling and all that stuff. But game-wise, it was always good. It was always enjoyable. And it was always like it was a really cool concept. But they took that, completely threw it all out, started all over, said, here's the same character, but look, he's grown. He's literally grown as a character. And I almost can't think of any other game doing that, where it's, it's like, it's going to be a little familiar. We'll give you some, like, cues as to what happened before, and how Kratos, he still has the scar, and that one scene where his band-aid or his bandage, I should say, is like hanging, and like he's remembering the chains that he used to have. We essentially have a brand. It's weird because we essentially have a brand new IP, but it's still it's like a reboot, but it's a sequel, but it's an entire new like. I don't even know how to talk about it. It's actually amazing what they've done, and it's amazing that they took this radical change. It's not like it's a different team. It's like pretty much the same exact team. And the funny thing is that they took this big chance. They took a big risk. They've been working on it for like 5 years. And then it turns out to be like, I'm not even kidding, like the greatest reviewed game on the PlayStation 4. Because you can't count The Last of Us Remastered because that was technically a remastered game, so that doesn't count. So therefore, God of War, PS4. And we're what? We're almost, don't tell me we're almost like 5 years into the PlayStation in November. I believe that it is. So we're 5 years in, which is a long time. And ironically, again, God of War, this God of War has been in development for 5 years, and it comes out, and then here it is, and it's literally the greatest PlayStation 4 game reviewed of all time. It's amazing that it worked, and it's not. I'm not even saying that it's luck. The reason is because, as we talked about in the last game, and I'm not giving them full credit because it isn't fully Naughty Dog, but as we talked about in the last video, and we got a lot of dislikes, and people just simply don't listen, so please listen. This game, God of War, this new God of War, is very much like The Last of Us. Not because he has a son and Joel had Ellie. I don't even give a crap about that. That has nothing to do with it. The thing that The Last of Us did was it treated us like adults. It wasn't Spyro, it wasn't Crash Bandicoot, it wasn't Ratchet and Clank. It wasn't like any of that type of stuff. Not that there wasn't, not like Uncharted's not adult, but Uncharted is still a very, it's like Indiana Jones, but like a more heartfelt, like not like kid friendly, just like funnier. There's just something to it where it doesn't feel as grown up, except for Uncharted 4 feels like a grown up Uncharted because it was Neil Druckmann who also did The Last of Us. So what I'm saying is, and I've said it before in previous videos, but if you didn't hear me say it before, I'm saying it now. The thing that I like about, and actually really love, about what PlayStation is doing, when you look at the games that we've been getting and what we're going to get, we look at The Last of Us, very grown-up, very adult game. It's truly a grown-up game. There's a lot of feelings in that game. They just did a very good job. It's very personalized, very story-driven, very up close. You could say all those things about this new God of War. There is absolutely no way that they didn't say, hey, our game's starting to look a little bit, the structure and whatever is a little bit reminiscent of The Last of Us. They knew that. They knew that when they did it. They obviously knew that going in, because what also came out in 2013? Didn't The Last of Us come out that June of 2013? So they obviously knew that The Last of Us was a success because they had many months between June and November which is probably, I don't know when they started exactly, but from the PS4 launch, basically, they had a lot of months to see, what happens when we kind of transition this Last of Us, this very grown-up feeling and all that? What happens when we translate it into our new PS4 engine, and what happens when we take away everything that we did for God of War and we do a fresh take, but we copy this, not really copy, but we replicate in our own way this style. And then from there, then they took it from there and they went with it. But it worked. But just really quick, because this is a big part of my point of why this game, this is the reason I'm about to say is the reason that this game's so successful. It's because it's story driven, and the main reason is, in my opinion, is because it actually treats us like adults instead of kids, where before it didn't really matter what was happening. We were just killing gods. Kratos was just always angry. He was always yelling, and it really didn't matter. It was just a hack and slash game. Fight your way through, keep going, kill this god, keep going, kill that god, leveling, jumping, puzzles. Not that this doesn't have puzzles and all that stuff, but it's more, they're not holding your hand. You're on this journey, just like in The Last of Us, just like we were almost in Horizon. Very different style game, but it treated us like an adult. You look at Days Gone, it's definitely going to treat us like an adult. You look at Detroit, very adult. So we're heading in this way of games, especially on PlayStation, as it seems, where they obviously know that their gamer base is growing up, and their games need to grow up too. And the reason that God of War, in my opinion, and I'm glad, I'm not giving like an excuse or talking about it like in a bad way. The reason that, in my opinion, again, that God of War, this new God of War, is so successful, and the reason that The Last of Us is so successful, and the reason that even upcoming, and this is going to sound weird, Spider-Man in September is going to be successful, and Days Gone and whatever, all of that. The reason that they're going to be successful is because they're going to be more grown-up versions of games that we used to play and love, but now we've grown up, and now the way that we see the world the way that we feel about things and people, each other, kids, husband or wife or girlfriend or whatever, those have all changed. So now we relate more. And before, when you had just a regular, Alex is going to be mad at me, but if you had like Uncharted 3, Uncharted 2, Uncharted, any one of those Nathan Drakes, you kind of related to him, but you mainly laughed at his jokes, and he was just a cool guy. But then you look at the Uncharted 4 Drake, and you really relate to him a lot more. Because now he's got his brother, you get to know his past, you understand how, you're nervous for him, because it's like, we know he's probably going to have a kid, he's married now, he really doesn't want to do it anymore. So he's older, he's slower, kind of, like, to get up or whatever. So, like, we actually understood, like, well, wait a minute, we're older, too, since Uncharted 3, and now it's like, you start to change. So that, in my opinion, is the reason why God of War is doing so well, and I couldn't be happier, honestly, because I hope that this is not a wake-up, but, like, a turning point where a lot of these games kind of say, you know what, we just can't keep just making games. We need to make games for adults. That is, I'm not saying like nudity and all that stuff. I'm saying that you have to have emotion, and we have to have things where we actually relate to people. And when we make a story, we actually have to make a story, not just something's happening. Where there's a lot of games where there's just something happening and it doesn't really matter why. No, we have everything's changing, and everything is definitely going in this certain direction. And I actually think in the end that even though right now Alex and I are in, I especially, like, in this big statement that I'm saying, even though I'm saying that God of War kind of became this because of The Last of Us, I think at the end, like 2, 3, 4 years from now, when more games are more story driven and more like this, I'm pretty sure that we're going to look back and we're going to say the real reason that this happened is because God of War took the chance, took the risk, and they did this. And now we have we have a lot more adult games with stories, with feeling, and centered around, like, things that, like, matter and stuff. So I actually think at the end of the day, God of War is going to be something that, and it sounds crazy, that God of War is the thing that I truly believe will change almost the video game industry.
I thought Tyler nailed it just now, what you guys were just listening to. I don't think I could honestly say it better. And he's been saying the whole maturing of gamers, I think, is a really crucial point, a point that doesn't really get talked about a lot, but I really think Tyler has it there. I really do think that is the reason. Other than completely agreeing with everything he said, I will just say, touching upon the whole taking a franchise and changing it, I do want to talk about that just really quickly. I saw a tweet, I think yesterday when we were recording this, I think like on Saturday, that there was just a random person basically said, thinking about it, all the games that made the jump from last gen to this gen and have kept going. He didn't include Uncharted in this, and I think Uncharted would be put in the God of War category, but he didn't include Uncharted, but he said it was games that keep going. And he listed Halo 5, Mass Effect Andromeda, and Gears of War 4. None of them have done what God of War did. They all backfired. Everything backfired on all three of those. Halo 5 was a disaster. A lot of people hated it. People have been jumping off the Halo wagon for a while, but they've definitely done it more so now. Mass Effect, we don't need to talk about Mass Effect. We know what happened there. And even Gears of War was definitely a disappointment. It didn't do anything to really change the franchise moving forward. And, Uncharted is finished. Naughty Dog finished Uncharted, so you can't really count that. But for God of War, what Tyler was saying too, it's so cool to see. Because, we were doing the live stream of God of War. Tyler had watched me play God of War 3. A lot of people came to watch, and we got a lot of new people. And what I think was really fun, not just about interacting and replaying the game, but noticing just how freaking different God of War 3 is to what this God of War is. And I think in order to have this game be so special, the 95 average speaks for itself. It needed to change itself. It needed to be a new game, a new entity for this new modern generation of gamers. Like Tyler said, we've grown up. God of War 3 came out in 2010. It came out 8 years ago. Tyler and I, that was the first game him and I had ever played together. So it was a long time ago. I was 13 years old when that game came out. So, like Tyler had said, we're all grown up now. Between Uncharted 3 and Uncharted 4, it was 5 years. A lot of people have grown up since these games. You need to treat us, like Tyler's saying, as adults. Sony knows that we are getting older and we're experiencing new things, and the people that are with them are the people that they know they're going to be able to keep going forward. And I'm really, just like Tyler said, I'm really happy about that because they can continue this. Detroit is, I guarantee you, David Cage has really kind of always been ahead of this curve with Heavy Rain, starting it really. That game definitely treated us like adults too. I have no doubt in the future that these games are going to be more mature, more atmospheric in that way. And Tyler had even said that back at E3 when we saw God of War, that the entire Sony E3 conference felt very adult-like. Yeah, so that's really awesome that we kind of fully see this, and it's definitely been noticed with God of War. Like Tyler said, I couldn't be happier. I was expecting it to be good. I didn't stay up that night when the review embargo lifted, and I had seen positive things. I had figured God of War would have gotten in the high 80s. That's kind of what I was thinking it was going to get. I thought IGN would give it like an 8.7 or 8.8 or whatever, and I thought it would hover around the high 80s. But seeing that IGN gave it a 10 and all these websites gave it a 10 and its Metacritic is a 95, I mean, that's right up there. That's like a point or two behind The Last of Us. So that's truly incredible. And like Tyler said, it's God of War. It's a game that people really enjoyed. It was always fun, but it wasn't like a masterpiece of games. It was like, oh, look at this technology that they did. It was always a really beautiful looking game, but it was never like, this is what defines PlayStation. This is what defines us as gamers. I think back then it was maybe Uncharted or some other game. So it's really cool that this is the game now. Like Tyler said, that's the best, at least until Last of Us Part 2, it's the best PS4 game we have. Maybe Spider-Man can be even better, and that'd be awesome. So I'm really excited too. And obviously Tyler and I both hope that you guys are very excited because, like I said, Friday, giveaway for God of War. Definitely come back if you want to win God of War. We're going to be doing that. We're going to be having videos throughout the weekend and next week about God of War. We'll be live streaming it over the next several weeks. So if you want to watch us, if you don't want to watch the whole thing, you obviously don't have to. But we're going to be doing that as well. So we cannot wait. It's finally come 2 more days away. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave in the comments below what you guys think of this video. What do you think about God of War's praise? Do you think it deserves it? Why do you think it's been so good so far? And we're going to go from there. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you for our future God of War content.